Fire Emblem is a turn-based RPG developed by Intelligent Systems. It currently has 15 main series titles and millions of fans. But that's not what this video is about. Or at least it's not the main focus. I'm a big fan of Fire Emblem. While I haven't beaten every game, I've at least tried a lot of them, and I know at least something about every single one. About a week ago, I was browsing through YouTube when I saw this video. I had a bad feeling about it, but I was intrigued. Fire Emblem has a large, complex fan following, and I didn't know if it could be explored in just over 10 minutes. I had no idea how bad the video would actually be, though. Before I go any further, I should get this out of the way. I don't hate this guy. I don't even dislike him. I'd seen a couple of his videos in the past. They weren't bad, just not my cup of tea. Don't go tell him he's stupid or whatever. However, his video has many problems that I'd like to point out. Some of them are potentially harmful problems that could dilute the opinions of newer Fire Emblem fans. Other problems I'm just pointing out because I'm a critical jerk. I'm just gonna dive right into the core of the issue, and the whole reason why I wanted to make this video. The way RPG Monger represents the longtime Fire Emblem fans is wrong. If you've watched his video, you may have an idea of what I'm talking about. The problems he harps on the most are all about how the Fire Emblem elitists are bullying the new Fire Emblem fans. He really represents the old-time Fire Emblem fans in a negative light, and this isn't really fair at all. Some of his quotes include, "A vocal minority of elitists began to form within the fandom, harassing anyone who as much as liked Awakening," or "all of a sudden that minuscule group of elitists were reborn anew, even more vocal than ever before," or "the Fire Emblem elitists were demeaning anyone who as much as enjoyed the new Fire Emblem Fates game." These elitists were never the problem with the Fire Emblem community. To explain this, I'm gonna have to dive into a bit of Fire Emblem history. As the story goes, Fire Emblem games were not selling as well as they used to, or at the very least not as well as Nintendo wanted. The Fire Emblem series was in grave danger of being cancelled. For what they thought could be their last game, the development team stuffed Fire Emblem Awakening with as much content as they could, as a kind of thank you, goodbye gift to the Fire Emblem fans. Through mechanic simplification, easier game modes, and some thematic changes, they managed to entice a huge number of new fans into the series, and Awakening became the best-selling Fire Emblem game to date. However, longer-time Fire Emblem fans who had experienced the older games had some concerns. The structure of the new game was drastically different from past Fire Emblem games. Instead of going from chapter to chapter, you had a world map to traverse. This wasn't unheard of for the franchise, but its implementation was very distinct from the other times it had been used. The game had a bit less grounded tone. Because of it, you could go play your DLC while Grimo was waiting to be slain and other dumb stuff like that. Not helping this were all the lollies and one-note linear support conversations. One of the biggest examples was the marrying aspect of Awakening that let you matchmake your units. While this was kind of anime dating sim-ish, people gave it a slide because it kind of fit with the theme of the game. In general, longtime Fire Emblem fans feared Fire Emblem was being dumbed down. Awakening was originally meant to be a kind of send-off for the series, and for some fans it still was. It marked the point where Fire Emblem started some drastic change. Going back to the history of Fire Emblem, after Fire Emblem Awakening, Intelligent Systems released Fire Emblem Fates. This was bad. As you put it, a game that, to the joy of some and to the dismay of others, built on a lot of Awakening's newer aspects. However, this isn't really true. Fates kinda only took the most weeby, casual factors of Fire Emblem and amplified them 1,000-fold. Now the child units were horrible, the plot was horrible, your main character was horrible, all the characters were one note and horrible. You could like stroke your waifu's face and like blow on them? What the hell is this, and why is it in my Fire Emblem game? It's because the weebs eat it up. Don't get me wrong, I'm a filthy weeb too. I bought my birthright, married Azura, and had my little retarded child. Intelligent Systems was selling Fire Emblem out to weebs, which led them to being dumbed down, and them being less fun games. And I can hardly blame them. Money talks. Fire Emblem Fates made total sense from a business perspective. However, the classic Fire Emblem fans weren't going to let their series be taken from them without a fight. Which leads me to my next point. For me to explain this, I should explain my history with the Fire Emblem franchise. I think my first exposure to Fire Emblem was when I saw a copy of Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn sitting in my local GameStop. It looked intriguing to me, but I didn't end up buying it. It wasn't until I watched a Jay Witz video talking about Fire Emblem Awakening that I got interested again. As a filthy weeaboo, I saw the weeb elements of the game, and it really looked good to me, so I picked it up, and I loved it. Cordelia was my waifu, and I would protect my children, Severa and Morgan, with my life. I thought Awakening was amazing, and I convinced some of my friends to pick it up too. When I saw Fire Emblem Fates being revealed, I was super hyped. The new designs looked so slick and cool. I was eating up all the weebish mechanics, and I was super excited for the new game. I bought Conquest for my friend, and I got Birthright as physical copies so I could get the cool keychains, and I quickly beat the game. And then I beat Revelations, then I got tired of it while I was playing through Fire Emblem Conquest. Maybe I should beat that already. Around this time, I started interacting with Fire Emblem fans online. I ran into the so-called elitists. They talked about the older games and how much fun they were compared to the newer games. Sure, their critiques of the newer games were harsh, but in retrospect, the games kinda deserved it. Those games had massive flaws. I never saw any of the hardcore fans tell newer fans, kill yourself if you play Phoenix or casual mode, or I will kill anyone who likes Fire Emblem 13 or 14. At their worst, they'd call new Fire Emblem fans weebs who don't appreciate what made Fire Emblem great, or they'd call people who play casual stupid for ruining the games for themselves. And they were kinda right. You can get crappy weeb games with anime girls anywhere, but Fire Emblem used to offer a unique mix of strategy, tone, aesthetic, character, and heart. That isn't really present in the newer games. Sure, the older games had their cute anime girls, and they had some design flaws, but they still were really good, and the anime aspects weren't really as much of a focus as they are in the new games. Back on topic, my life as a Fire Emblem fan changed when I ran into Fire Emblem Cypher, a Japanese trading card game with a small English community that I joined. Through this, I learned the most about Fire Emblem fans, and the Fire Emblem community that I ever had before. I saw all kinds of Fire Emblem fans. I was introduced to the older games through their cards, all while playing a trading card game that I found really fun. The Fire Emblem Cypher Discord server was an amazing place for me to meet some really cool people and learn about all the aspects of the Fire Emblem community, which brings me to my next point. If I were to visually represent the Fire Emblem fanbase, I would use a massive Venn diagram. There are many different groups within the fandom that cross over with all the other groups. There are the groups around each individual game, the people who play the games for low turn counts, the people who play the games without resetting, the people who only play for the waifus, the people who hate the waifus, the people who play Fire Emblem Heroes, the people who only like Kaga's games, the people who only play the trading card game, fans from every region of the world, and even more than that. The FE fandom is a huge, interconnected web of many smaller fandoms, and I think that's kind of amazing. I'm a part of many of these communities, even if I mainly stick to just lurking around the discussions. For you to make such a lazy video that doesn't dive into anything deep about the Fire Emblem community is kind of insulting. The FE fandom is so huge and complex, and your analysis of it comes down to, it has annoying elitists, but I guess they make good art. That is a spit in the face to anyone who actually cares about these games and want to address its biggest problem, which is... After Fates, IS caved to the desires of the classic Fire Emblem fans and gave them Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia. It had problems, but overall, it went back to a lot of the things that made the old game so great. But there was one big problem. The game did not sell well. In fact, it sold really poorly. This was a wake-up call for all the classic Fire Emblem fans. If they wanted new, innovative Fire Emblem games in the style of the games of old, they would have to get the fandom to tell IS with their wallets. The biggest problem with the Fire Emblem fandom is that so many of the fans don't get what makes Fire Emblem so great. The classic Fire Emblem fans have to step up to the plate. They have to educate the new fans about the greatness of the old games, encourage them to give them a try, warn them about the pitfalls. Sure, the elitists can be harsh and loud, but that's because they're desperately fighting to protect the series they love. If they aren't loud, no one will hear them. If they aren't critical, no one will care. It is because of these elitists that I discovered the joy of the older Fire Emblem games, and I can't thank them enough for it. The biggest part is, almost every new fan I've seen has been open and eager to try the older Fire Emblem games. If we can just remove the stigma about the elitists, we can make the Fire Emblem fandom a much better place, and we can get everyone to enjoy the older games. Now that my main points are done, I want to address some of the things that just bothered me about the video. Lightning round, let's go. Number 1, it's really lazy. You hardly go in depth about the community. Lots of the video is just filler trying to make it longer, like the case study thing or the heroes thing about the alts. You could have cut that stuff out. Number 2, the case study thing itself, how is that relevant to the Fire Emblem fandom? What is one guy doing something himself? How does that represent anything about the community? I get this is kind of a reoccurring bit for your series, but it didn't really work in this example. Number 3, speaking of examples, you don't use any of them. You make a lot of claims about the elitists, but you don't back up any of them with examples whatsoever. You could have taken screen caps of like elitists just raging at younger guys in the Fire Emblem community, and it would have been really easy. And it would have made your points a lot stronger. Number 4, your tone. Is it just me, or did you sound like super condescending in the video? You kept going on and on about how you and your good part of the fandom were so much better than the slimy elitists. It's really off-putting. I think I know why this video stands out among your others. The Sonic and Undertale fandoms are mainly made up of stupid, cringy kids. And that's what you're used to talking about. Simple, stupid kids. Fire Emblem fans are mainly teens and older. They think a bit harder about what they enjoy. They don't do things without reason as much. When they get upset about something, there's a serious reason behind it. It's harder to criticize people if they actually have a brain and can think. But maybe I'm just retarded and wrong about all this. After all, I am just some unintelligent guy on the internet. Whatever. See ya. This is just my unscripted outro bit. I hope I didn't come across as too harsh. He isn't really a bad guy, I think. He just kind of made it a dumb, lazy video that wasn't researched that much. I guess everyone does it from time to time. I hope you enjoyed this. I put some amount of work into it. Maybe I'll upload videos more, or at all, I guess. Don't check out my other video, because it's really garbage. And, yeah. See ya.